Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Vanderbilt University's 2015 Senior Class Day. Please welcome to the stage the President of Vanderbilt Alumni Association, Patty White. The President of Vanderbilt Student Government, Tanner Owen. Chancellor Nicholas Zeppos. And your 2015 Senior Class Day speaker, Walter Isaacson.
Welcome to Senior Day. I'd like to share a quote by Karen Armstrong. All religions are designed to teach us how to live joyfully, serenely, and kindly in the midst of suffering. And when I think about religion, I think about a community. As the Vanderbilt class of 2015, we are a community. Throughout this year, we have had too many opportunities to come together in the face of adversity. Whether you participated in the demonstrations during the violence in Ferguson, in the protests against hate speech in the wake of anti-Islamic sentiments published in the Tennessean, in the silent march to support AE following anti-Semitic vandalism to their fraternity house, or in any other act on campus to combat hatred that all too often reaches our campus, you have participated in the Vanderbilt community. Although we may not have all participated in each of these events, our dedication to this community has led each of us to stand against negativity within the sphere of campus that we have connected with during the past 4 years. No matter what we did on this campus, there is a common bond that forms between each of us. It is that bond that I feel incredibly lucky to share with each of you today. While there may never be a time free from suffering, I know that there is a Vanderbilt student willing to stand up against it. I'd like to invite 4 fellow students to share some reflections on this day from their religious traditions. Banma Patel, Savannah Shepard, Sarah Haseen, and Anjola Olayemi.
Greetings. Over the years, we have been building a network of new friends and mentors. With new experiences and perspectives, we've learned from each other, and we have learned to accept one another, despite our differences. Moreover, I hope you've come to love yourself, to love your identity, to appreciate your experiences, to accept your actions, and to have reaped the benefits from all of it. From a passage in the Upanishads, the aim of real education should be self-realization. Realization of the values of the soul. What you have learned reflects upon who you are. Every time my family leaves the driveway, we say Jai Shri Krishna to bless the journey ahead of us. And I wish everyone here the same. May you live peacefully with others. May you work towards making the world better. And may you continue to grow and learn. Jai Shri Krishna. Peace.
I'm excited to welcome you on behalf of Vanderbilt's Jewish community. We read in Deuteronomy, the Lord our God spoke to us at Sinai, saying, "You have long enough surrounded this mountain. Turn away and take your journey. Sinai, the site of God's revelation to the children of Israel, was a formative location in the lives of the Jewish people, and yet they were told to move on. Vanderbilt has been a place with similar significance for us, a place where we have learned and matured. But our time has come to move on. We must go out into the world and enrich the lives of those around us. So as we begin this journey, I pray, may it be your will, Lord our God, that you lead us toward peace, guide our footsteps, and make us reach our desired destination for life, gladness, and peace. Amen.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all. On behalf of the Muslim students at Vanderbilt, I congratulate all of you on your accomplishments. As we step out into the world outside of Vanderbilt, some of us have clear paths and plans, and some of us are still figuring out what exactly it is we want to do. No matter what it is you end up doing, I hope you will always be kind to yourself and to others, honest and optimistic. As you celebrate our hard work, I hope you find solace in living in this exact moment and being thankful for it. I know we all learn to pray as if it was our last prayer, to hug as if it was our last, and to smile as if it was our last. Good luck to all of you.
"1873. That's probably a conservative estimate of the number of chapters we've had to read through our Vanderbilt careers. The thing about chapters is that they're always bound to end, and depending on the book, we either just want to stop where we are or press in and see what else this book has to offer. Whichever the case may be, it is always good to reflect in these moments on the lessons from the previous pages, the moments and the values that we've acquired through the journey, and the characters and relationships that make every sentence count. As the Apostle Paul was ending one of his many chapters to the Corinthians, he urged them to rejoice, aim for restoration, live with peace with each other and also with God. With this in mind, let us continually apply the lessons from our experiences in our Vanderbilt chapter, even as we continue to explore this book that is life, always dwelling in peace, seeking reconciliation, and showing love to all human beings through the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the sweet fellowship of the Holy Spirit. Remember, this is not goodbye, but see you in another chapter."
Welcome, Class 2015. Congratulations. My name is Patty White, and I'm the president of the Vanderbilt Alumni Association. On behalf of 135,000 alumni around the world, let me be one of the first to welcome you to membership in the Alumni Association. We're thrilled. I hope you are too. And I suspect there are more than a few parents in the audience who are also thrilled and ever so proud. While it may seem a bit daunting to leave behind the familiar faces and places of the Vanderbilt bubble you've been in for the last 4 years, as you contemplate life after Vanderbilt, trust me, you are prepared. You have spent your time on campus or abroad, honing skills, acquiring knowledge, and developing talents so you can thrive in a fast-changing world. Your Vanderbilt network will expand from the 1,600 classmates graduating with you tomorrow to the worldwide alumni community in over 140 countries. Wherever you go, there is likely to be an alum who's already there. None of us can predict the twists and turns our life pathways will take. If you had told me when I graduated almost 40 years ago that I would live in 5 cities and spend more than half of that time in Europe, I would have been incredulous. Life has certainly been a grand adventure, and I'm grateful to fellow alumni for every step of the way. So when you go to grad school or take your first job in a new city, connect with the alumni there. Sign up with VU Connect and keep your details current so that you can receive directly information about local chapter events. If the only address that Vanderbilt has for you is your parents' home in Dallas, you won't get information about local alumni events if you're working in New York City. Join the Vanderbilt LinkedIn group. Like us on Facebook. Your generation is the expert on keeping in touch via social media, so just do it. Every class of graduating seniors stands on the shoulders of all the alumni who have gone before. Their sustained and generous support has enriched your experience here. From Opportunity Vanderbilt, to endowed chairs for outstanding faculty, to the commons in college halls, alumni support is invaluable. Through your support of the Senior Class Fund, you have acknowledged the importance of giving back and paving the way for future Commodores. Keep up the great work. Commencement is the beginning of life after Vanderbilt, but it also means that you are now Vanderbilt for life. You are ready, and so are we. Welcome to the Alumni Association.
Good morning. My name is Anna Watt, and I am the overall chair of this year's Senior Class Fund. I, along with 5 exceptionally talented officers, Sherry Chen, Michelle Wyman, Sarah Hoffman, Aaron Suggs, and Pranav Santapuram, and the support of 89 committee members, led this year's Senior Class Giving campaign. The purpose of Vanderbilt's Senior Class Fund is twofold. The first, to encourage our classmates to give back and ease that transition from students to alumni. The second, to acknowledge and celebrate the incredible people who make up our class of 2015. In these weeks leading up to commencement, the sentiment I have felt the most and experienced in my classmates is a kind of disbelief. Disbelief that this day is actually here, disbelief that tomorrow we'll walk across that stage and Saturday we'll wake up and leave this place. But for me, that is countered with a much greater comfort that these 4 years have been spent so well, that these relationships will not disappear, and that this will always be a place that we call home, and we can always be part of this community. Senior Class Fund is one way that we can do that. Today, I am proud to announce that over 1,000 of our classmates, 65% of our class, have chosen to give back through Senior Class Fund. In addition, we've secured over $10,000 in matching funds through the generosity of an anonymous donor. We're still pushing towards a 75% goal and taking gifts continuing today. But I'm extremely proud of the generosity that has characterized our class's giving all year long. With that, I would like to invite Chancellor Zeppos to join me at the podium so I can present to him a banner that marks our class's progress to 65% participation. It's marked with the signatures of students who have chosen to give and to express their gratitude to Vanderbilt in this way. Chancellor Zeppos, we're so grateful for all of your work that you've done and the way you've led this university to create so many opportunities for us. And we're looking forward to an incredible lifelong relationship with this university. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Tanner Owen, and welcome to the day before the rest of your lives. For all the families here, thank you for your support and guidance over the past few years. I know without my own, I would not be where I am today. I will be brief, as I've peppered you with emails and the like far too often this year, but I do have a few parting words to share. And I'll start by saying that I really have no business on this stage. Nothing that I've done has justified or proven my ability to speak to you over anyone else in this arena. So take what I say with a big grain of salt. With that being said, since being asked to speak, I've done quite a bit of thinking about what commencement means and what a Vanderbilt degree demands of us after we leave West End. Having contemplated for weeks, the word responsibility kept passing through my mind. And no, I'm not talking about real world, I have to pay bills now, and I shouldn't call mom and dad for everything, but the type of responsibility that is demanded of citizens having received a global education from a place like Vanderbilt University. More than ever, our nation and world are in need of individuals that understand not only how to raise their own intellectual capacity, but also know how to empower those who need it most. Through protest and riot, through stories and movements, we have seen the culmination of years of national and global inequality reach a point where we as a society must choose what is important to invest in. And in an effort to be as cliche as possible this morning, I'd like to offer you all a quote. This one by Mark Twain, who said that every time you stop a school, you'll have to build a jail. What you gain at one end, you lose at the other. It's like feeding a dog on his own tail. It will not fatten the dog. I think what he was saying is that time and capital invested in positive societal structures results in a lesser need for negative structures. We must continue to invest in education and opportunity that is cognizant of the disparities seen in our society. This statement was true when it was said in the year 1900, and it still rings true today. Vanderbilt has made incredible commitments to serve students of exceptional capacity and talent, regardless of their socioeconomic background. We, as a student body, have benefited greatly from this, as it affords everyone perspectives that they otherwise would be without. Unfortunately, this concept and practice has not progressed into the greater fabric of society. As alumni of this institution, we owe it to the next generation to preserve and spread those same opportunities that we have come to enjoy here at Vanderbilt for all citizens, domestic and abroad. Our Vanderbilt degrees will be better because of it. I promise I had no intention of getting this deep with this address, but I would be remiss to fail to mention the importance of generativity as a responsibility. Having benefited from this institution of higher learning, giving back now is now a responsibility that we all bear. I challenge you to think about this as you move along life's path and never take for granted the value you can have in the life of another. Thank you, and God bless. And now to introduce the man, the myth, the legend, Chancellor Nick Zeppos.
Well, thank you very much, Tanner, for that very, very moving speech. And I want to extend a warm welcome to these remarkable graduates, their families, their friends, some of their faculty colleagues who've come out to hear our Senior Day speaker, and to join us as we celebrate Senior Day after a great party last night. I hope some of you were there. I don't know what happened. There was someone there that looked a lot like myself, and there were pictures taking. I heard some of them got on Snapchat. Vanderbilt is investigating that right now. Identity theft is a terrible problem in our society. I want to really commend Tanner for his leadership over the last year. I think Vanderbilt is distinguished in many ways, one of them being that the university really celebrates leadership. And there's no better leadership than talented and very, very devoted, bright students coming together to say, how through challenge and opportunity do we make Vanderbilt better. And Tanner and I would meet regularly and try to move ourselves through a year of challenges, but incredible fun and opportunities. So Tanner, thank you so much. Now, let me also extend my deepest gratitude to the more than 1,000 seniors who participated in the Senior Class Fund. It's my great honor to thank each and every one of you who contributed to this generous gift, and Anna and the Senior Fund Class officers for their dedication as they're moving toward graduation, as they're taking their final exams, to motivate fellow students to give back to this great university. I think one thing that makes the American universities the very best in the world is the mix of private and public universities. Vanderbilt, as a private university, is dependent upon the generosity of private giving. And I think that is what makes Vanderbilt extraordinary, and I believe that's what makes the American university the envy of the world. It's hard to imagine yourselves giving back $20.15 to think that there will be among you somebody who creates a scholarship program, builds a new science building, endows an engineering professor, and gives back even $20.15 for their 50th reunion as they are working in areas of impoverished societies. And so thank you so much for your gifts, and as Anna said, the books are still open. I also am inspired every year, and our commitment to diversity and inclusion is affirmed every year by the young people who cross this stage to share their faiths and to weave together a common fabric of humanity and the beautiful community that we can be in one world. I want to thank Aliza Murali, President of the Interfaith Council, as well as Vama Patel, Savannah Shepard, Sarah Hassin, and Anjola Lua Olanemi for their participation in a beautiful ceremony, affirming commitments to your faiths and the respect you have and love you have for people of others. This is an extraordinary university, and it goes back to its founding. Cornelius Vanderbilt, a northerner who grew up on Staten Island, who never traveled to this campus, had a vision. He wanted to create a university that would strengthen the ties of humanity. More specifically, in the ashes of the Civil War, this man from the North, whose bride, Crawford, you might have lived there, decided that they would try to heal up the wounds between North and South, and to bring this nation together. Many of you know the Commodore was a tough business leader and amassed a great fortune. I think his greatest gift to America, his best business he ever started, Walter, if you would call him an entrepreneur, it's not the New York Central, it's not the Staten Island Ferry, it's Vanderbilt University, his very best investment ever. I've insisted that if you dug him up and you said, Mr. Vanderbilt, we want to show you what happened to that $1 million, and he'd walk across this campus, his jaw would hit the ground and said, my goodness gracious, I should have created 100 of these. So we have this special obligation at Vanderbilt to fulfill the Commodore's healing mission, to sustain a culture of inclusiveness where people of very different backgrounds and very different beliefs come together to pursue knowledge, to make friendships, to make discoveries, and to go forward and make a better world. I also want to thank Patty White for her president of the Vanderbilt Alumni Association. There are more than 135 alumni around the world. And just test it. Walk in any city, take a hike in any park around the world, put a Vanderbilt t-shirt on, put a Vanderbilt cap on, and you will quickly find you are at an alumni gathering. So Patty, thank you so much. I also want to recognize Anna Watt for her outstanding service, for chairing the Senior Class Fund, and also for doing a quite admirable job in my senior seminar on the Federalist Papers, taking on James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay. This is a week of celebration of the students and their extraordinary achievements and their very bright futures. On Senior Class Day, we try to commemorate an individual, to hold somebody up who exemplifies the values and the principles that we hold most dear as a university community. Carrying forward a tradition made possible by our distinguished alumnus, Ed Nichols, and his wife, Janice Nichols, we pay tribute every year on Senior Day to a true humanitarian, somebody who has made a profound difference in the lives of others. We present to them the Nichols Chancellor's Medal. This award was created and endowed in memory of Ed's parents, Edward Carmick Nichols and Lucille Hamby Nichols. Janice and Ed, I know, are with us today, and I would like us to recognize them for their generosity in establishing this medal and its symbolism of aiding and serving humankind. Thank you so much, Ed and Janice. On behalf of the entire community, I am honored and pleased to welcome our Senior Class Day speaker, Walter Isaacson. Mr. Isaacson serves as the president and CEO of the Aspen Institute, a nonpartisan educational and policy studies organization based in Washington, D.C. In carrying out the Institute's important mission of fostering leadership based on enduring values, he engages daily in connecting creativity, energy, and resources to tackle the foremost societal challenges of our times. This connection of art and science and people is one that Mr. Isaacson has written about and explored extensively in his many best-selling books, including The Innovators, How a Group of Inventors, Hackers, Geniuses, and Geeks Created the Digital Revolution, Steve Jobs, Einstein, His Life and Universe, Benjamin Franklin, An American Life, Kissinger, A Biography, and The Wise Men, in which he and co-author Evan Thomas told the story, no, not of Gaspar, Melchior, and Balthazar, but rather of 6 close friends who shaped American foreign policy following the uncertain years in post-World War II America. Walter's writing, indeed his life's journey, centers on the theme of innovation and human ingenuity. Hailing from New Orleans, he went on to earn degrees at Harvard College and Pembroke College of Oxford University, the latter as a Rhodes Scholar. Like many great thinkers, he began his career as a cub reporter for the Sunday Times of London. But the lure of his hometown of New Orleans drew him back stateside to report for the Times-Picayune. Following that assignment, he rose through the ranks of Time from political correspondence up the ladder of editorial positions, eventually become the magazine's 14th editor. Next step, COO of CNN. Without question, Walter's is a journey that represents a true American success story. We are so pleased to recognize him with the Nichols Chancellor's Medal. Walter's work as Chair Emeritus for Teach America and his leadership in the organization's commitment to provide all students access to an excellent education by training and placing recent college graduates in schools in underserved communities. I'm pleased that several of our graduating seniors in our audience today will be have already been recruited to serve Teach for America. They will join a phalanx of recent Vanderbilt graduates who are current TFA core members and the scores of Vanderbilt alumni who have worked to further Teach for America's aspiration to expand educational opportunity in ways that are life-changing for children and transforming our country. I also want to recognize Mr. Isaacson's appointment by President Barack Obama as chairman of the Broadcasting Board of Governors, the federal agency that has the small job of overseeing all U.S. civilian international media and his governance of those broadcasts. These include Voice of America and Radio Free Europe. We should applaud Mr. Isaacson's work in this capacity that serves to inform, engage, and try to connect people around the world in support of the enduring values of freedom, equality, and democracy. We pay tribute to his leadership as vice chairs of Partners for a New Beginning and for advancing that organization's critical goal of forging ties between the United States and the Muslim world. I don't know if he has time for these things. His dedicated efforts as vice chair of the Louisiana Recovery Authority, which sought to ensure that individuals, families, and businesses ravaged by Hurricane Katrina received adequate aid to rebuild their lives and communities, literally rebuilding one of America's great cities. Mr. Isaacson, your leadership roles in educational and humanitarian initiatives personify the very qualities we seek to honor with the Nichols Chancellor Medal, and it is my great honor to present you with this award today. Mr. Isaacson has chosen to donate a portion of this cash prize that comes with the Nichols Chancellor's Medal to the Teach for America organization. We are delighted that the Nichols Chancellor's Medal will play a role in strengthening TFA's mission and movement for educational equality. Thank you so much. I think you came to hear him speak, not me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chancellor. Thank you very much to the Nichols family. It's wonderful to be back here at Vanderbilt, a place I truly love, where a lot of my friends and a lot of my family have been students, including now my niece, the very spirited and talented Maisie Ains, who's a member of your community. But most of all, I want to salute the members of the class of 2015, the graduating class of Vanderbilt. It is my high honor and distinct pleasure to welcome you to the community of educated men and women. You are hereby officially credentialed as being smart. That's the good news. The bad news is that you're about to find out that the world is filled with a whole lot of smart people. In fact, they're a dime a dozen, and they often don't amount to very much. What really matters is being imaginative and being creative. That's something that I hope you were set on that path here at Vanderbilt. And what I hope to do today is just give you 5 lessons that I have learned from the people I have written about and covered on how to be somebody who's creative, who's imaginative, who, in the words of Steve Jobs, knows how to think different. I think the first lesson is something that at the heart of a university like this, which is the importance of connecting art to science, the importance of both the humanities and of technology, and not only their separate importance, but the importance of being able to connect the two. When I first started writing about Steve Jobs, we took a walk, and he told me that as a kid, He was an electronics geek. He loved putting together ham radios like I did in the basement. But he said he was also interested in the arts and the humanities. He really loved calligraphy and dance and poetry and literature. And he thought it was weird to have both sets of interests until he read something that Edwin Land, who had invented Polaroid, said, which is those who can stand at the intersection of the arts and the sciences, those who can stand at that intersection where the humanities meet technology will be the creative ones, the ones who will produce value in our society. And if any of you ever saw Steve Jobs' product launch, he had a big screen like that above my head at each one of those launches. From the iPod all the way through the iPad, iPhone, anything else, the last slide on that screen would be a street sign that showed the intersection of the liberal arts and technology. He said, that's in the DNA of Apple, and that's in the DNA of what we do in America, and that's where the value will be created in the 21st century, just as it was in the 20th century. For Steve Jobs, that meant valuing the beauty of things. He believed that beauty mattered, even in your iPhone, even in your technology and its software. And he even cared about the beauty of the parts unseen. When we were taking those walks, he made me walk by the house as a little kid where he grew up in California. And we went around the backyard where he and his father had built a fence at age 6. And he made me put my hand along the back of the fence. And he said, my father told me we had to make the back of the fence just as beautiful as the front of the fence. And Steve, young kid, had said to his dad, why? Nobody's ever going to see it. Nobody's ever going to know. And his father said, yes, but you will know. A good craftsman even puts a beautiful piece of wood on the back of a chest of drawers that faces the wall. And so when Steve did his first amazing product, the original Macintosh, at the end of 1983, he had it in a beautiful case with wonderful curves and chamfers. He had wonderful icons on the screen that were bitmapped. He made me look at a jeweler's loop to see how beautiful those pixels on the screen made those icons. But just as they were finishing the machine, he looked at the circuit board that would be inside of the sealed case. And he said to his engineers, this circuit board stinks. Actually, he used a slightly stronger word than that. And the engineer said, what are you talking about? He said, well, the chips aren't lined up. They're not straight. They're not equally spaced. It's not beautiful. And the engineer said, but Steve, nobody's ever going to see it. Nobody will ever know. And Steve told him the story of the fence around his backyard. And he said to them, yes, but you will know. And so they held up for a few weeks, shipping and finishing that original Macintosh, until the circuit board inside could be made beautiful. And when it was, Steve had them all sign a whiteboard, all 30 engineers on the original Mac team, with Stephen P. Jobs, all in lowercase in the center, so they could engrave it on the inside of that case, where nobody will ever see it, nobody will ever know, but as Steve Jobs told them, real artists sign their work. That care about the beauty of the parts unseen is something that you will take with you for the rest of your life, whether you're making a service or a product, whatever field of endeavor you're in, you will know that if you really care about something, you're going to make it beautiful, even in the parts that others won't see. That desire to connect the arts to the sciences, to connect humans to machines, humanity to engineering, is as old as Aristotle. If you look at Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, that wonderful drawing of the guy in the circle and the square, you say to yourself, is that a piece of art or is that a piece of science? And if you look at it long enough, you realize that Leonardo da Vinci would not have made such a distinction. Indeed, the founding patron saint of the computer revolution is somebody who stood at that intersection and understood the importance of arts connected to technology. That was Ada Byron, the Countess of Lovelace. She was Lord Byron's daughter, and as Lord Byron, the poet's daughter, she inherited a poetic sensibility. She loved poetry. But as she was growing up, her mother, Lady Byron, was not particularly fond of Lord Byron. Those of you who took English literature can probably figure out why. He was a little bit too much of a romantic poet for Lady Byron's taste. And so Lady Byron had Ada tutored mainly in mathematics, as if learning math would be an antidote to being poetic or being romantic. Instead, Ada created what she called poetical science, the combination of poetry and science. She loved traveling the Midlands of England, looking at how the industrial looms were using punch cards to make beautiful fabric patterns. Her father, Lord Byron, was a Luddite. I mean that literally. His only speech in the House of Lords was defending the followers of Ned Ludd, who were smashing those looms on the theory that technology would put people out of work. He was wrong then, just as people who think that today are wrong. And Ada understood that. She understood that the connection of humans to machines would continue to drive a great technological revolution. And so she came up with the concept that the punch cards that made those beautiful patterns on the weaving machines of industrial England in the 1830s, those punch cards could also work with a friend of hers, Charles Babbage, who had made a numerical calculator. And she said, with the punch card, she published a paper in a scientific journal, which was unusual for women back then. And she wrote that the punch cards mean that the calculating machine will be able to do more than just numbers. They'll be able to do words, be able to do music. It'll be able to do anything notated in symbols, including art. In other words, she came up with the concept of the general purpose computer. And ever since then, we've been living in Ada Lovelace's world, connecting our humanities and creativity and our beauty, that's part of who we are as humans, to our technology, and thus creating value. The second lesson is a simple one, which is to be curious. Sometimes at university, they knock all the curiosity out of you. You're told not to question received wisdom. But in fact, the great creative people that I've ever written about have all been curious about even the most mundane things. They've been rebels who've questioned the received wisdom. From Leonardo to Einstein, they even questioned, why is the sky blue? And worked on that for much of their careers. For Einstein, this ability to be curious and question things that you and I would find mundane also started when he was a kid. We biographers love those things that happen when you're 6 or 7 years old that become the rosebud moment. For Einstein, it was when his father gave him a compass. And Einstein was mesmerized about how the needle, no matter how he turned it, the needle would twitch and point north. Nothing was touching the needle. There was nothing physical hitting that piece of metal. What was the force field? Why was it doing that? You and I probably remember getting a compass when we were age 6. We go, oh, well, look, the needle, it points north. And a few minutes later, we're like, oh, look, a dead squirrel. And we're on to something else. Throughout his life, until his deathbed, Einstein was still wondering, how does a force field work? Why does that needle twitch and point north? His curiosity about it led him to drop out of school, to run away, to leave the German school system where they were trying to teach him by rote. He studied Maxwell's equations, which describe an electromagnetic field. And if you look at Maxwell's equations, or if you're Einstein and you look at Maxwell's equations, they say something pretty amazing, which is that an electromagnetic wave, like a light wave, will always be traveling at the same speed, no matter how you're moving relative to the source. If you're moving really, really fast to the source of the light wave will go by you the same speed, 186,000 miles per second or so, as if you're moving really, really fast away from it. And this curious kid, this runaway, this dropout, is saying, what if I caught up with the light wave? Wouldn't it look stationary to me? But Maxwell's equations don't allow for that. And he said that caused me such anxiety, my palms started to sweat as I walked around thinking about it. I remember what was causing my palms to sweat when I walked around New Orleans at age 17. It was not Maxwell's equations, but that's why he's Einstein, and not all of us are. As I said, he was not the best student. He's rejected by the second best college in Zurich, the Zurich Polytech at one point. I always wanted to meet the admissions director of the Zurich Polytech, who had turned down Albert Einstein. But eventually he gets to go, but he can't get his doctorate. They won't accept his dissertation. So the only job he can get is as a third-class examiner, a clerk, in the Swiss patent office in Bern. And what he's doing there is looking at patent applications to synchronize clocks. And the Swiss had just gone on standard time zone. And if you know Swiss people, they tend to be really Swiss. They wanted to strike 7 in Bern at the exact instant it strikes 7 in Zurich. And the only way to do that is to send a signal between two distant clocks, and that signal travels at the speed of light, whether it's a light signal, radio, whatever. And you got this patent clerk who's still wondering, what if I caught up with it? Wouldn't it look stationary? And so, with a leap of the imagination, just sitting on the stool in the patent office, not doing any experiments, he comes up with a theory, which is if you're moving really fast to one of the clocks, what will look synchronized to you is different than if you're moving really fast in the other direction, because the speed of light is always constant, but time is relative, depending on your state of motion. That's all the special theory of relativity is, a leap of the imagination. As Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. Took a while for the rest of the physics community to catch up, but eventually that becomes one of the founding pillars of 20th century science, and it happens because he questioned the obvious and even questioned received wisdom. Every other physicist of the time, including Einstein, had read Newton's Principia, which begins by saying that time marches along second by second, irrespective of how we observe it. And you got this patent clerk saying, how would you know that? How would you test it? What if you caught up with a light wave? Every one of the people I wrote about was able to think different, to be one of the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the round pegs in the square hole, as Steve Jobs put it in the Apple ad he wrote in 1997. In fact, a lot of them run away. Ben Franklin runs away, drops out. Einstein runs away. Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg. That's why I usually don't get asked to speak at graduations, since most of the people I've written about dropped out. But indeed, they do focus on where the knowledge intersects with the imagination. The third lesson is that creativity is a team sport. It involves the ability to collaborate. You know, we biographers sometimes make it sound like innovation is from a guy or a gal sitting in a garage having a light bulb moment. It actually comes from teamwork. Even the founders, the Chancellor was talking about the Federalist Papers, written as a collaboration. The founders were not just George Washington, although he was a necessary person in the team, but you needed a man of rectitude like him, but you also needed really smart people like Jefferson and Madison and Jay. You needed really passionate people like John Adams and his cousin Sam. And you needed somebody who could form a team, who could bring people together and make them collaborate. And that was the role of Benjamin Franklin. And what you see in the founding of America is not just great leadership, but great teamwork. Even at the very beginning, after the War of Independence begins, the Continental Congress has to create a committee to write a declaration explaining why we're seeking independence. It may have been the last time Congress created a good committee. It had Jefferson, John Adams, and Ben Franklin on it. And even in one sentence, the most beautiful sentence ever written in America, the editing of that one sentence, you can see the collaboration and the teamwork. In his first draft, Jefferson began that sentence with the words, "We hold these truths to be sacred." And there's Benjamin Franklin's printer's pen with the backslashes of a printer, crossing it out and writing, "We hold these truths to be self-evident." Explaining we're trying to create a new type of nation in which our rights come from the consent of the governed and rationality and reason, not the dictates of any religion. But the sentence goes on, and Jefferson writes, "They're endowed with certain inalienable rights." You see John Adams' handwriting, endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. So just in the editing of one half of one sentence, you see a teamwork and a collaboration that leads to balance. Balancing the role of divine providence and the role of rationality and reason in giving us the rights we have as a new nation. Over and over again, you see the inventions of our time coming through collaboration. Take the internet, for example. With all due respect to one of your local residents, nobody quite knows who invented it, although Al Gore actually does deserve an enormous amount of credit for the opening it up to the public as a senator. But the internet itself was invented by a team of people who knew that teamwork and collaboration was more important than just being a lone romantic innovator. It was invented to connect the research universities of this country who were getting funding from the Pentagon and the government to be able to share resources, share computing time. And so they invented a packet switch system that allowed packets to scurry through a network, through nodes in a network. But in order to make it work, they told the research universities that they had to come up with the rules for how you made these packets, address them, and make them recombine and skitter across the web. And being great research universities like this one, they did what great research professors always do. They delegated this task to their graduate students. And so a group of 30 graduate students started hanging around and figuring out, how are we going to create the protocols for ARPANET, which becomes the internet? And they take the youngest of them, Steve Crocker, who's in charge of taking the notes and jotting it down. And they say to him, all right, you be in charge. And he says, well, I don't want to call these rules or regulations. I want to make this collaborative. So instead of calling them rules or regulations or protocols, every time they have an idea for how to make a new thing that'll make the internet work or the ARPANET work, he calls them a request for comment, and he sends it around so they all get to look at it. That notion of calling it request for comment made sure that it was collaborative, but it also ingrained the peer-to-peer collaboration that is now the hallmark of the digital age. That was cool when they did it back then in the 60s. What's even cooler is that's still how the internet is being built. We're up to 7,500 in the request for comment process, but it's still being done collaboratively. When I was at Time magazine, we wrote that they did it that way so it would survive a Russian nuclear attack, because if there's no central hub or switch, it's harder for a nuclear attack to take it out. You take out one node, the internet routes around each node. There's no central power. We got a letter from Steve Crocker and Bob Taylor and others who had, the graduate students who had done the internet, and they said, no, that's not why we did it. We did it because we wanted no central authority. We wanted it to be collaborative. Time magazine was arrogant back then. We didn't print the letter. I know, I was there. We said we had a better source. And when Steve Crocker told me that story, reminded me of it, I went back to my friends at Time magazine. I said, get me the file folder. I want to know who the better source was. The better source, it turned out, was a guy named Steve Lukasich, who was running ARPA at the time. And he said, yes, we were doing it to survive. We told the colonels at the Pentagon it was doing this way to survive a Russian attack. That's how we were getting the money for it. We didn't tell the graduate students that. They were all avoiding the draft, but that's why we did it. So you tell Steve Crocker that I was on the top and he was on the bottom, so he didn't know what was happening. When I told Steve Crocker that, he stroked his chin and he said, you tell Lukasich that I was on the bottom and he was on the top, so he didn't know what was happening. And that's the essence of the peer-to-peer collaboration that's a part of our digital age. And then the fourth lesson is humility. Humility is the foundation for all collaboration, for all teamwork. When Benjamin Franklin came to Philadelphia, he made a list of the virtues he would need with the fellow members of his Leather Apron Working Man's Club to be great citizens of the new nation they were forming. And that list is in the autobiography: industry, honesty, frugality, and he marks every week how well he does on those virtues. And at one point he had mastered them all, and he showed off his chart to a friend in the club. And the friend said to him, Franklin, you're missing a virtue you might want to try. And Franklin says, what's that? And the friend says, humility. You might want to try that one for a change. Franklin says, I was never very good at the virtue of humility. I could never master it. But I was very good at the pretense of humility. I could fake it very well. Now, the genius of Franklin was, he says, and I learned that the pretense of humility was just as useful as the reality of humility. It made you listen to the person next to you. It made you try to find out what their values were. And that was the essence of the middle-class democracy we were trying to create. You see that over and over again, even in the invention of the transistor, all done by a great team. Then the microchip, which is done at Intel and Texas Instruments. And finally, the Nobel Prize Committee has to single out one person to give the award to, and they single out Jack Kilby of Texas Instruments. First thing he says is, if Bob Noyce, the guy who ran Intel, were still alive, he would share this with me. We all did this. We did it as teams. We did it as collaborations. And when the head of the Swedish Academy, the scientist, introduced Kilby and said, because of what you did, the whole digital revolution has been born. It went on and on. Kilby got up and he said, that reminds me of what the beaver said to the rabbit at the foot of the Hoover Dam. No, I didn't actually build it, but it's based on my idea. That notion that we have to have humility as the essence of our teamwork is a type of collaborative spirit you have to take from this place. When you were here, collaboration, they had a word for it in class. It was called cheating. As you leave here, you'll realize that collaboration is the key to creativity. And finally, a word about character. The last rule is that you must realize you're part of something larger than just yourselves. People all over the country going to graduations this week, next month, are going to hear people of my generation. And they're going to hear speakers say over and over again, follow your passion. Follow your passion. It's sort of a mantra of our baby boom generation. Let me tell you something. It ain't about your passion. It ain't just about your passion. It's about connecting your passion to something larger than just yourselves. That's what you'll discover it's all about. I do not remember who spoke at my graduation. You will not remember me 30 years from now, probably. But I do remember the minister of our memorial church who gave a sermon to us that morning, the Reverend Peter Gomes, and the sermon was called What We Forgot to Tell You. And he said, what we told you is that you're really smart, you're really talented. What we told you is that this is a very exclusive place and you got in. And you went from being in this exclusive place to more and more exclusive layers. But what we forgot to tell you was that it's not about exclusivity. It's about inclusivity. It's about bringing other people in, about having a mark on this world where you help others have the same advantages you have had. Somebody came up to him after the sermon and the Reverend Gomes said, what do you want to be now that you're leaving? And the student said, I want to be powerful. I want to be important. I might even want to be president. And Reverend Gomes said, you should aim higher. He said, this college has put out a lot of important people, a lot of powerful people, even a few presidents. But the important thing is putting out good people, people who realize that they're part of something larger than themselves. That's what made all the characters I wrote about so great. Near the end of his life, for example, in 2011, I was talking to Steve Jobs about what it was all about. And he said, I like to think that life is like a river, as is history. You get to take things out of the river that people before you have created. Wonderful ideas, beautiful products, really cool devices, services. And if you're lucky, you get to take a lot of things out of that river. He said, but what you end up realizing, it's not how much you take out of the river that counts, but what you get to put back into the river. What people years from now will say, ah, yes, he put that or she put that into the river, and it made the world a little bit better of a place. And as for Albert Einstein, on his deathbed, and he had an aneurysm. He was in the hospital. He knew he had a day or two to live. He asked his secretary to bring the papers from his desk. And after the visitors had left, on what would turn out to be his last night, he took those papers and started writing line after line of equations to keep following up on the equations he had been working on. 9 pages of equations that night, making little math mistakes, correcting them, that he thought might get us one step closer to the spirit manifest in the laws of the universe. He was still looking for that unified theory, a theory that would tie together forces of gravity and electromagnetism and particles, that would, to put it more simply, explain why does that compass needle twitch and point north. And just before he died, he just wrote one last line of the equations as the pain became too great, and it dribbles off the page, as he thought he would put back in the river just one more little thought that would get us closer to understanding the beauty of the laws of the universe. And as for Dr. Benjamin Franklin, during his lifetime, he donated to the building fund of each and every church that was built in Philadelphia. It was like the procession we had earlier today. He knew that the important idea, the new idea that the United States was bequeathing to the world was a society in which people from different religions and different ethnic backgrounds could all live together and respect each other. And at one point, they were building a new hall next to Independence Hall. If you go to Philadelphia, it's still there, still to the left of Independence Hall, still called the New Hall, even though it was in the 1700s. And in the fundraising document, he began by saying, even if the Mufti of Constantinople were to send somebody here to preach Islam to us and to teach us about the Prophet Muhammad, we should offer a pulpit and we should listen, for we might learn something. On his deathbed, he was the largest individual contributor to the Mikveh Israel Synagogue, the first synagogue built in Philadelphia. So when he died, instead of his minister accompanying his casket to the grave, all 35 ministers, preachers, and priests of Philadelphia linked arms with the rabbi of the Jews to march with him to the grave. That's what they were fighting for back then when they were creating this new nation. And that's what we're still fighting for around the world and even at home. Thank you all very much, and Godspeed. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that inspiring send-off to these great young graduates. Also for affirming what the values and mission of Vanderbilt are, and also for your sense of balance and creativity in art and science, in moving yourself forward with others. Thank you so much. Our activities will continue today. I know that we have family, friends, but there's opportunity to go to class. And we have some fabulous lectures and classes across the campus today. They begin at 2 o'clock in Wilson Hall. I know I'll be there with my computer in hand to take class notes. And I encourage you all to attend, but most importantly, enjoy this special time and celebrate those you love. Thank you.